Action Network Saturday morning broadcast live on WLIB 1190 AM. I'm Katrina Jefferson, the New York City chapter coordinator, and it has been my pleasure to host you all this morning, filling in for our Executive Vice President, Attorney Michael Hardy. Without further ado, he is one of the most prominent activists leading this country. He is the man who is not afraid to speak up for the voiceless and stand firm in his beliefs. He is the soul reacher, the liberation seeker, and he is a true teacher. He is the president and founder of National Action Network and has devoted his life to helping our people. He is none other than the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton.
No justice,
no peace.
No justice,
no peace.
No justice,
no peace.
No justice,
no peace.
What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
When do we want it?
Now.
When do we want it?
Now.
Hug the person next to you, tell him you love him. Action Network, Change Choir, give them a big hand. Give them a big hand. Certainly we're happy to be with you another Saturday morning for the Saturday Action Rally, and for you that are listening live on 1190 WLIB AM in New York, you that are watching live stream on Facebook, live stream on National Action Network around the country, and in a few moments we'll be live on Impact Network all over the world. Let me thank all of you that are here though at the House of Justice, 106 West 145th in the village of Harlem, for another Saturday Action Rally where we have been meeting 26 years now, every Saturday morning, where the action is. You know, tomorrow's Father's Day, and I was talking in the back about our litany of the litany of struggle, but really the continuity of struggle. And one of the things that you learn is the older you get, the more you understand that if you're not connected to something bigger than you, and the continuity of something other than you, you will have little historic value. I was watching this morning the memorializing and extolling of Helmut Kohl, former leader of Germany. And he helped to unite East and West Germany and broke down the barriers with France. The fact that there was some questions later in life about campaign finances with his political party and his wife took her own life and all, it becomes footnotes. Because what they dealt with is the big picture is what he linked into European history and the Union of Germany. Why am I saying that? A lot of what we get down in the weeds and never get past won't matter 2 minutes after we gone. What will matter is what your life meant and how it hooked up with where you should have been at that point in history. Whether you got along with Jane or whether you and John spoke really won't matter. You and Jane gonna die, and ain't neither one of y'all got nothing to say in the cemetery. That's why I'm very happy every Saturday morning when Bishop Herbert Daughtry walks in. Say, Happy Father's Day to Bishop Daughtry. Because Saturday morning rallies in 1966, when Dr. King went to Chicago and was trying to nationalize his movement, they started Operation Breadbasket. Reverend Jesse Jackson became the local head of Breadbasket. The head was in Atlanta at the time, Reverend Bennett. And later, Reverend Jackson became the national head. They started Saturday meetings. It was just clergy meetings at the Chicago Theological Seminary. It started expanding later when Dr. King was killed. Thousands started coming. That's when Jesse started Saturday morning rallies. Reverend Bill Jones and Reverend Daughtry started them in Brooklyn because that was the breadbasket model. And we'd meet in Fellowship Hall at Bethany Baptist Church every Saturday. I was 13 years old and was the youth director. So I'm doing what I've done all my life. I've continued the tradition of Saturday morning. Live on the radio, this has been a tradition. Somebody will continue it from us. This is what we do. That's why you see people celebrate their history and we celebrate what is contemporary. Don't let folk trick you away from your grounding, because your strength comes from your grounding. That's why every prophet in the Bible, first thing he did was go back, say the name of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This ain't about me. This is about where I come from. Anybody that act like it started with them is getting ready to rob you, fleece you, or con you. I don't want no new Negroes in my life. I want some black African Americans that's connected to the litany of struggle and the continuity, because you won't know what to do now if you've not studied and been grounded in what preceded you. Glad to have with us also Dr. Professor Aubrey Hendricks. Give him a hand. Our scholar. That's a scholar extraordinaire. His book about Jesus is required reading. People ought to get it everywhere. And we talking about him playing a real role with Nash Action Network. Give a hand to Sister Katrina Jefferson that hosted us this morning. And I want to commend our national organizers. Stand up, Brandon, and Isabel's not here. And they took chapter leaders from around the state to Albany on this past Tuesday and lobbied about our state prosecutor's bill, about automatic voting, and about extending long to early voting days. You know, New York is one of the few states still doesn't have early voting. Illinois just went with automatic voting. We do not have early voting in New York. Big liberal New York. Dr. Hendricks and I were talking about in the back. This big Hendricks, we were talking about in this state. Senator, glad to see he come out of Nan, our new state senator. Come in here and try to preach I'll be hearing him on the radio. You're in the Senate now. You're not at a Nan rally. You got to act senatorial. But we cannot allow New York to keep acting like a liberal state.
Right.
And the laws and the legislation and the money does not reflect liberal at all. Hello?
Hello.
And part of what it is, if you study Adam Clayton Powell and the Harlem bus boycott, which was before Montgomery, who had to rumble with LaGuardia all the way to now, they've gotten away with false advertising. Come to New York, all is well, when other parts of the country has made more progress in terms of contracts, in terms of their voting rights than we have right here. And we need to deal with that. But you have been seduced into looking cute, acting smart, and having nothing. You know, when I was growing up, people were famous for having attaché cases with nothing in them. They be going to the subway with their attaché case with a chicken sandwich in it. Because they spent the whole day looking for a job, but they tried to act like in Brownsville they had a job. So they get dressed up and put their attaché case in with a little fried chicken sandwich. And I'd be on the train, I smell something. There's lunch. And that executive next to you is a attaché case because he ain't no executive. We need to quit fronting and change things in this city. So I want us to be real mindful of that. I'm going to get into that, deep into that. I want to give some announcements. We're getting ready to come on live on the Impact Network. I'm going to give some announcements and my report of the week and then give my Father's Day message. We're glad to be live now on Impact Television. Give them a big impact. Let them know you're in the house of justice this morning. Let me say that we are, again, praying for the families of Charles Bobbitt, who passed, who was a manager for James Brown so many years and traveled with me. And then this week, my heart is still shaking and heavy with a 34-year-old young preacher who worked with our National Action Network during the Michael Brown police killing in Ferguson, Missouri. Pastored Michael Brown's father, came in and worked with us. 34 years old, Reverend Carlton Lee, had a massive heart attack and died this week. And we'll be funeralizing him this week. Let us pray for the family, Reverend Carlton Lee. Don't forget tomorrow morning, everybody watch me on Politics Nation with Al Sharpton, 8 a.m. Eastern and 7 a.m. Central. I'm going to deal with the whole week of issues that happened. Certainly the shooting of Congressman Scalise, but also the president under investigation. I want y'all to watch that in the morning on MSNBC 8 a.m. Tomorrow morning, before I go to the afternoon, tomorrow morning on Father's Day, you in the New York area, I'll be preaching at the 9:30 service and 11:30 service at Metropolitan Baptist Church, 149 Springfield Avenue in Newark. So I get off TV and do my radio show. I'm going straight to Newark. Reverend David Jefferson, who's on our national board, is the pastor. Cory Booker goes to that church. 9:30 and 11:30, I'll be preaching in Newark. And then Monday night, you that are watching us from North Carolina, I'll be joining Reverend William Barber and North Carolina National Action Network, North Carolina NAACP at the Philippe Church of Christ at 3760 Philippe Center in Greenville, North Carolina. And we having a rally there for Dante Sharp. Some of you that watch Politics Nation know the case, this young man falsely accused of murder. And Reverend Barber asked me to come down and speak at a rally. I'll be with him on Monday night. And we are glad to deal with that. I want all of you also to support the move of the family of Philippe Castile. This young man killed on Facebook Live as his girlfriend was filming. And they took the case outside of the county to the next county, in a county that was pretty much known as favorable to police. And they acquitted him of all charges. And you saw thousands march last night, and we are available, as we've told our allies in Wisconsin, to support whatever is necessary in the tradition of protest and in the tradition of building new laws. Let me tell you something. As his mother said, the system shows it continues to fail black people. But what we must do is not be guilty of failing to change the system. The way it is set up is stacked against people of color, which means we got to change the stack. You don't keep sitting up playing against a stacked deck. You change the deck or you get a new game. And too many of us have been worn down. What they expect, I can't understand. How come all of us that had so many things to suggest to President Obama done got laryngitis since Trump been in? I'm confused about that. I went this week to one of the foundation dinners, and Mrs. Michelle Obama was speaking, and we spent a few minutes talking, and it amazes me how the people that were the most vocal critics of Obama has had nothing to say. Not one word, not one critique, nothing about Donald Trump and about Sessions. Question holder. Now, with President Obama, we moved toward police reform, cameras, study on policing, started commuting sentences of low-level nonviolent drug dealers. We didn't get him to do everything we wanted, but all that was moving forward. First thing Trump and Sessions said is we ain't doing none of that. We are not letting nobody out for low-level drug crimes. We are not reforming the police. In fact, we want to build a morale of the police. We are going to go back into privatized prison. We ain't doing none of that. And all the folk that were outside the White House woofing at Obama, when they said we ain't doing nothing, they said, okay. Only march you had, civil rights march, since he was elected, was when we went January 14th and marched in Washington, getting ready to go back. Because many of us know that we could take shots at Obama because he was not going to fire back. And when you take advantage of your brother, it doesn't make you brave. It makes you someone that is really less than courageous, because you want to fight somebody that you know ain't fighting you. That's why I'm telling people around the country, this is a moral church-based movement, but it believes in calling it like it is. There is no prophet in the Bible that God didn't call to question the wickedness in the day that they lived, starting with those in power. For Moses, there was a Pharaoh. Moses just wasn't in the Bible for prayer meetings. He fought Pharaoh. He had to go to prayer meetings in order to fight. Joshua had to go on and establish, go across to the promised land. Had to go through the Jordan. You want to sit still, do nothing, and think that God's going to give you the energy to do nothing. Lord, give me strength. Strength to do what? I need another touch. After he touched you, what are you going to do with it? I got touch to do the work. I got touch to help somebody. I got touch to care for those that are not being cared for. Don't waste God's touch. Let me say that it is important that we continue this work. This week, I met in Washington with Senator Charles Schumer on the very things we talk about. What are the Democrats going to do in the Senate on voting rights? What are they going to do? He's the minority leader in the Senate. What are they going to do about continuing police reform? What about the crime bill in terms of criminal justice reform crime bill? We need to push them. Wherever we may not have the votes, well, y'all got a voice. So raise sand and raise the issue and bring about the vote. Let people vote against it. Let us take a record of who's doing what. But we cannot surrender. We cannot, that's one of the reasons why I came with this decriminalization at the cannabis, World Cannabis Congress the other day, yesterday. Folk out there were, is Remy Allen supporting reefer? No. I ain't telling folks to smoke reefer. I'm telling them to quit criminalizing people that have been arrested on nonviolent marijuana charges. Why? Because if you got a marijuana arrest, there's certain public housing you can't even live in. You can't be admitted to certain schools. You can't have certain jobs. I want decriminalization. Just like I don't support smoking, but I don't want menthols banned and our kids get records. But you can smoke a Lucky Strike and nobody bother you. We fight for equality. Now, I may believe what you're doing is wrong. And it might not put you in heaven, it might put you in hell. But I'm going to fight for your right to get there. I'm going to tell you, you're going. One of the things is that we must break the spirit of cowardice, afraid to speak up. This week while I was in Washington, our Northeast Region Director joined the Reverend Johnny Green. Stand up, Reverend Green. I want them to see you on television. Give him a hand. He's the president of Impact and pastor of Mount Nebo Baptist Church. Y'all heard him last week here. Reverend Patrick Young, who's sitting in the audience, and Brother Crenshaw, all our pastors from Impact, stand up. We're glad to have them with us. We all working together. Reverend Crenshaw, glad to see you. And Reverend Young is sitting in the audience because he ain't letting me come to preach at First Baptist long time. So y'all sit him in the back till I get my invitation. But they marched this week saying that there cannot be contracts to redo the airports, LaGuardia, Kennedy, on the way to Penn Station, without our community's businessmen having contracts. You cannot keep taking our tax dollars and spending them with everybody but us. Now that's real activism. Well, Reverend, before you get started, run right back to where do we go from here? Chaos Our Community. Martin Luther King in the last chapter where he talked about Operation Breadbasket, he talked about black banks, black contractors. Y'all got the end of his sermon and never listened to the sermon. Y'all like the come home part. You know, the preachers tune up and do the come home. but never get the content. Y'all think we ain't preached till we holler. The famous speech, I Have a Dream. I Have a Dream was the climax of his message. That wasn't the message. Y'all need to read the whole speech. That's why when Nan was the lead on the I Have a Dream on the March on Washington 50th anniversary in 2013, I wanted to bring out the content of what he said. The reason they went to the Lincoln Memorial is he said, here in the shadows of Lincoln, you promised January 1st, 1863, and you have not fulfilled the promise. When you signed the Emancipation Proclamation, free the slave, you promised 40 acres and a mule. We never got that. We got the kick, but we never got the mule or the 40 acres. That's what they talking about now, fulfilling the promise of America and the debt of America. And we still fighting for it now. Folk around the country need to know in New York, they're spending billions to rebuild the airport. But the folk that live here have no real equity in the building. So we've got to shut them down till they make a way for us. Real man, y'all talking about doing stuff that's military. No, that's intelligence. Folk take your money. We raise offering in church. Uncle Sam don't raise an offering. He take his money. Am I right? IRS don't knock on the door with a basket and say we raising an offering to keep the government coming. They take your money, and if you don't pay it, they take you. So if you gonna take my money, you going to cut us in some of how you spend our money. And I want us to really support Impact, these ministers in their fight as to what they are doing. I think that we must realize, you know, one of the fights, I was saying to some of the ministers that say, well, Reverend Al, I don't have that kind of ministry. And they're different ministries. There's some that do different things. I don't condemn other ministries, but don't condemn ours. God called us to deal with the social justice issue. Somebody got to deal with your members that get police problems. Somebody got to deal with the legislation that builds privatized jails. Somebody has to deal with an unemployment rate that's so high and crime that's too high. I ain't telling you don't do what you do, but God, the same God. That's why God is big enough to give everybody an anointing and a role to do. That's why people ought to support National Action Network that's watching us, because we doing what we know that God would have us do. Let me say, Monday is historically a day that we call Juneteenth. Before I get into my Father's Day message, Juneteenth, I want y'all to follow me. Juneteenth was when the Union soldiers finally came in and freed the slaves in Texas. They were in Louisiana. They were the last ones freed. Many of them did not even know that they had been freed. Wasn't no emails in 1863. There was no social media. So even though Lincoln had freed the slaves, they didn't know they were free. Now, we'll break that down. There's a couple of things y'all need to know. One, it's bad when you have been freed and don't know it. That's the first Juneteenth message. Showing up to work when you don't have to. Voluntary slavery is worse than forced slavery. So a lot of us that are upset about the election but didn't vote Fannie Lou Hamer, all for to give you the right to vote. You at the game somewhere, not voting. And then ask what happened. What happened is you could do something and didn't know you could do it. You imagine in Texas, folk working, mining the fields, going out and dealing with whatever the masters told them, and didn't even know they didn't have to do that no more. One of the reasons why I can do what I do is because I got the message that I'm free. Now, then they sent the soldiers in and freed them. Then a few years later, got the historian Dr. Obrey's here. A few years later, they tried to rescind. They went through Reconstruction. Reconstruction, we could vote. We put 22 members of Congress, 2 members in the Senate. Then they said, hold it, we got to stop all that. They had stopped breaking down the states where blacks could vote, the slaves could vote. They said, we got to retreat that. And what happened is they had an election that was too close to call. A man named Samuel Tilden against Rutherford B. Hayes. They made what they called the Tilden-Hayes Compromise. What was the Tilden-Hayes Compromise? We will withdraw the troops from the South, and we'll let you be president. They took the troops out, and when they took the troops out, Hayes became the president. But what happened? When they took the troops out, that's when there was no laws to protect us anymore, because if you don't have an enforcement of the law, it is no law. So that's when the Klan and the White Citizens Council and others rose up. Now, that is also when the white church sanctified it. That's why I got a problem with all of these. That's why I work Bishop Jackson and them in Impact, because there are those that want to tell us and sell us our religion to get a mic with them when they don't believe in the religion that they speak. Be careful of those that want to be your manager, to manage your spirituality for their personal benefit. And they need to back up off us before we pull the curtain off the whole thing. Let me get back on. It just gets me mad when they try to do the black church. But let me tell you something. When they did the Tilden-Hayes Compromise, and they withdrew the troops from the South, and we lost all the members of Congress, lost the Senate, and then they made it official with what? The Supreme Court, Plessy versus Ferguson. There were no rights for, that a black had that a white was bound to respect. And it remained law until 54 of the next century. Brown versus Board of Education. Thurgood Marshall, NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Well, everybody sitting here today saying, ain't that something? Well, I'm telling y'all, you're in the middle of that right now. Trump wins the election, though he got 2.8 million less votes. First thing they do is say, don't worry about police reform no more. Don't worry about all this stuff Obama was talking. Don't worry about Medicaid, we're going to cut that back. Don't worry about health care. All that he doing, even Cuba. We're going to stop y'all from going to Cuba spending money. Anything he did, we're going to reverse. And we are going to not enforce the law. Philippe Castile. Even if you got it on video, not guilty. You're right back there now. And he can stack the Supreme Court and come with a Plessy versus Ferguson rule. If those of us that know better don't show better, if those of us that's supposed to have the light hide our light, we are going to go back in the same cycle that we went through over 100 years ago. But we're too busy posing to be smart. We're too busy showing how brilliant we are. We're too busy engaged in trying to be self-indulgent rather than work and serve where we're supposed to protect what happens in history. Get your Bibles. In the Bible, it was the job of every generation to maintain what God had given the generation before. If you could maintain Israel once they'd been established, you were not a leader. You were not a leader because you had a nice chariot. You were not a leader because you was running around giving the slaves prayer cloths. Yeah, they needed to be healed, but they needed to also maintain the state of liberation. God don't call people to bless slaves' chains. He calls them to help break the chain. That's why a lot of folk got into consecrated, gold-plated chains. Look at you, you still a slave, but look at your chains. Gold-plated chain. If you be good slave, we put diamonds in it. But you a slave. God said, tell Pharaoh, let my people go. Don't make them better, beautified slaves. So when the black church will not speak for the people that need it, others will come in and will proselytize their ways to nullify our spirit. And our children then will have no guidance and be shooting each other down in the streets. We must speak the word because the word will make a way for itself. So on Juneteenth, when they got free, they were free to do what? They were free first to stay free. Now, on the reverse, you can't have a real movement. This is what Martin Luther King came with. You can't have a movement unless it's a spiritual grounded movement. Why you say that, Rev Mal? Because if you don't believe in something bigger than you, if you don't know there's a power that's stronger than the power of those in government, you will not face the government because you will feel that's the end of all power. The reason I'm not afraid to question those in power is because I know another power beyond them. They may have the Congress, but not one of them can decide that they're going to draw their next breath. There's another power. Not one of them can pass a bill to keep their heart beating. There's another power. Not one of them can say what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. There's another power. And I serve the God that hangs the sun in the sky, no matter who got the majority of Congress. And as long as God is on the throne, I can stand up for what's right. Now, if you are afraid to carry this mantle, then leave it alone. When I was growing up, the choir used to sing in church. When I was a boy preacher, God don't have and can't use no coward soldier. Coward soldier ain't gonna fight. In fact, let me tell you something. You ain't even got faith unless you get rid of fear. Fear and faith don't stay in the same location. The definition of faith is that you have gotten rid of your fear and you have rested on your faith that no matter what the case, God will make a way for you. I have two daughters. Both of them here this morning. I tell them they're in the social media. They can Google up anything, connect anything, find out anything. You know, was a time you can go talk with my parents. I can tell them stuff they couldn't check. Both my parents came from the South. They migrated to the North, looking for a better life, and dropped out of school. So I was the first one in my family to go to college. So they da. Well, you know it's so-and-so. It sounds right. They didn't know no better. But I tell my kids something. They Google it up while you sitting there eating with them. Say, no, that ain't right, Daddy. You got to fact check, talk to your own children. Well, Emancipation Proclamation was 1865. No, it wasn't. It was 1863. Just eat your food and shut up. But I tell them, there's some things you're going to face in life that you ain't going to be able to Google up the answer. There's some problem that's going to rattle you and rock you that social media ain't going to be able to cross you through. There's some things that you don't see coming. You know, I travel a lot. Every week I'm going somewhere. And you know something, Johnny Green? The worst turbulence flying is called clear air turbulence. You know, when you go to the airport and you see it's cloudy and they say there's storms, you kind of brace yourself. We may get bumps for 10 minutes. But it's when it's clear air, when the sun is shining and you can see the blue sky. And then for no reason at all, the planes start bouncing. That's the worst turbulence, is clear air turbulence. Well, in life, it's them clear air turbulence that'll rattle you the most. Everything going right. Family good, health good, job secure, and out of nowhere, something just starts shaking you. You ain't gonna be able to go to your laptop to figure that out. And believe me, it's coming. Because everybody living gonna have some problems. You're gonna face something sooner or later. And when them turbulence come, that's when faith kicks in. That's when you go to what you know. And that's why I don't get rattled, not because I'm unflappable. You ain't like to talk about Jay-Z and Obama and them was cool. Reason I'm cool is because I know. I know something. I know that God will make a way, no matter what the situation. That's where faith kicks in. I didn't Google that up. I didn't get that from Yahoo. I got that growing up because every time I called him, he heard my cry. Let me say this in my Father's Day. One of the things that we must do, as I've celebrated the fathers and the tradition that National Action Network is in, from Dr. King, the Reverend William Augustus Jones, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, Bishop Herbert Daughtry. But also, we must celebrate our own fathers. Many of us, like me, come from broken families. But we cannot keep confirming and reinforcing the brokenness. At some point, we got to decide that we're going to heal the break. You know, I found out that a lot of us become we love to talk about, we celebrate being broken. It's one thing to survive being broken, but it's another to celebrate. Want to be known for brokenness. You ought to be known for breaking the brokenness, for reconnecting the brokenness. I remember a couple of years ago, 2012, my mother passed. And she had been sick for about 8 years with Alzheimer's and dementia. Last 7 years, I would go to Alabama to see her, and she didn't even know I was. And my sister told me that lived there in the South with her from her first marriage. She was getting weak the last couple of weeks, wouldn't eat. And we expected she may not make it. I went when they called me. I was on my way to lead the march in Sanford, Florida for Trayvon Martin. And I went in here. And when I went the next week for the funeral, I remember that we had talked. Dominique, my oldest daughter, went and arranged all the funeral stuff. And they said, well, who's going to preach the funeral? I said, her favorite preacher is going to preach me. And I went down to preach her funeral. And we had the funeral, and Martin Luther King III was there, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and Ben Jealous of the NAACP. Everybody was there. President Barack Obama sent a note. And here we are in Dothan, Alabama, where my mother couldn't vote in her hometown till she was full grown. And President of the United States, black man, sent a letter to her funeral. And we had this great celebration. And my sister and brother there, and everybody there. But sitting toward the back of the church was my father. He had left when I was 9 and broke up the family. And I'd seen him down through the years, but never ever got close to him. I always resented that he had left. You see, when I was born in Brooklyn, New York, he owned the house I was born in. I was born in Kings County Hospital. He owned the first house I lived in 542 Logan Street. And then he owned his own business. He was his own boss. I grew up watching a man of color, the boss in the house. Never seen him punch a clock. He was the boss. And he did so well, he bought a house out in Hollis, Queens. And we lived in a corner house in Hollis, Queens. And he bought a new Cadillac every year. And I was on my way to being a middle-class, idyllic Negro in Queens. I had an idyllic life, big lawn, had to go out and mow the lawn, walk my German Shepherd dog. But because of his mistakes, because of his weakness, he broke all that up and abandoned us, and they cut the lights and the gas and repossessed the Cadillac, and we had to move to Brownsville.
Go ahead, Sean.
And I grew up in a world I did not know. I grew up collecting rent with my daddy. Now mama had to get a welfare check to pay the rent. I grew up with too much food on the table. Now I had to hide the food stamps to go to the supermarket so my friends wouldn't know it. So I couldn't forget that. I couldn't let that out my system. But somehow my mother never spoke against my father. She said, that's still your dad. And when I got up to preach at a funeral, I looked at the back and saw he was sitting there. Every one of her children had spoke. Some of her grandchildren sang. But they didn't even acknowledge him in the church. And I remember she kept telling me, that's your dad. And before I took my text, I said, I want y'all to give a hand to my father, and made him stand up. And introduced him at my mother's funeral. His dad, his new wife, and he sat down. Everything went well, went and did the burial, and we went on to my brother's place and had the repast. And I remember like it was yesterday. I was sitting at the table at the repast, and Reverend Jackson looked at me and he said, I know what you went through with your father, but you need to let that monkey off his back. You need to go over there and talk with him. You need to let that go. On the day you buried your mother, you need to let that go. And I looked at Jesse, I said, well, Al, you need to let that go. There's too much weight for you to carry where you going. God has blessed you to survive the break. You walking in and out of the White House with Obama now. You got your own show on NBC now. It's time to let it go. Because where you got to go, you don't need the weight of what happened to you. God brought you through that. If you hadn't went through it, maybe you wouldn't know what it was like to live in the projects. If you hadn't went through it, maybe you wouldn't fight like you fight. God got a way of using your pain to refine you for your purpose. Sometimes God will bring you down so he can lift you higher. You just want an unfettered high ride all the way to the sky. But every once in a while you got to come down and go back up. They never made a plane that didn't have to refuel sometime. That's all right. And after I complained a little, I went over and started talking with my father. And we've had a relationship ever since. Talked to him yesterday. I say that to say, somebody watching me, somebody listening to me, you need to get beyond that breaking point and realize that for whatever reason God gave you that father. And if he's been good to you, embrace him tomorrow. But even if he hadn't been good to you, you need to find him not for him, but for you. There's a story that Jesus, a parable that Jesus told about the prodigal son. And we all know the story. A young man got old and decided he wanted to go off on his own. A lot of us been through that. With his daddy and say, I want my portion of goods. First of all, he didn't have no portion. He didn't earn nothing. A lot of folks, I want mine. You ain't got none of yours. Daddy didn't argue with him, gave him his portion. And he went out, and the Bible said in the parable that he spent all he had. You know, when you roll it heavy, when you got it like that, you got a lot of friends, you got a lot of folk that'll roll with you. But when he spent all he had, all his buddies was gone, all his partners was gone, all the hangout buddies was gone. And he sat there about to eat the husk that the swine ate. But then he remembered who he was. I'm talking to somebody out there. You are not where you are. You are where you come from. He could have said, I'm a hopeless wino, a hopeless junkie, a hopeless drug. No, he remembered who he was. He said, I ain't got to take this. I ain't got to eat with the swine. There are more in my Father's house. I'd rather be a servant in my Father's house. He remembered the house he came out of. Quit letting folk define you by your lowest moment and remember who you are. But here's the Father's Day test. He headed home. When he got off and was headed within the distance, the Bible says Father looked. Some of the servants say, here he come. We know he wasn't going to make it. Here he come. Broke now, ain't he? Here he come. But the test wasn't on just him. The test was also on his father. That same test Jesse put on me. The test was, is the father going to behave like a father? Father could have said, yeah, here you come. I gave you all yours. The father said, no, that's my son coming. Y'all go kill a calf. We're going to have a feast. Get out the robe. Get out the ring. He was lost, but now he's found. You got to love people beyond their mistakes. You got to love them beyond their broken point. You want to have a Father's Day gift, drop all of your grudges and your resentments and get past that, because somebody's going to have to get past that for you. Forgive so you're going to be forgiven. Let it go. Yeah, your daddy messed up and you're going to mess up too. You might not do what he did, but mess is mess. Let me tell you, it is a real challenge for us to spiritually grow. You got to get rid of the weight that stands between you and who you could be. That's why I was thinking this morning about how in 2008 we went to Atlanta for the night of the election. I said that I'm not going to Chicago to see the results with President Obama. I campaigned and did what I could for him to win, and everybody was headed to Grant Park in Chicago. They invited me to be in the VIP section, but I said, no, I want to have a watch night in Atlanta. Watch night, you know, New Year's Eve, we have watch night to see the new year come in. Well, I call it an election watch night. And we had it at Dr. King's church because I felt that we should watch the results near the tomb of those that made the results possible. I wanted, you know, Dr. King's church right across the street is where he's buried. And Mrs. King, who used to come to all our conventions, is now buried right next to him. And I went that night to the tomb of Dr. and Mrs. King with his daughter, Reverend Elder Bernice King, and Martin Luther King III, and we stood there, Dexter stood there at the tomb, and then walked across the street to the church and watched the returns come in. But you know, Reverend Green, what we all don't realize, the name of Dr. King's church was Ebenezer Baptist Church. I remember when we started a lot of fights here in New York, Washington, Howard Beach, when they killed a black young man for being in the neighborhood. We used to go to Flushing to the house church, the home church of Reverend Timothy Mitchell, Ebenezer Baptist Church. I grew up preaching at Ebenezer churches. But I decided, you know what? What does Ebenezer mean? Ebenezer is in the Bible because the Israelites defeated the Philistines. There was a battle. I keep telling y'all can't get where you got to get without a battle. There was a battle against the Philistines. And when they won the battle, Samuel said, build a monument. And he called the monument Ebenezer. And the reason why it is providential that Dr. King's church is named Ebenezer is a monument of folk that died and shed their blood to give us the right to vote. It's a monument for those that marched and never ever thought they'd see a brighter day, but they made a brighter day. On Father's Day, think about your Ebenezers. The reason you can make it and look at what you already come through. The reason why I know there's a God is he brought me this far. When they thought I was finished, he brought me back. When they marginalized me, he made me mainstream. When they said no, he said yes. I'm an Ebenezer baby. I know where I come from. He walks with me. He talks with me. He tells me that I'm his own. I don't come from the doubters. I come from a fountain filled with blood, drawn from Emmanuel's for our fathers in the movement that made a way out of nowhere. Everybody singing. Everybody singing. Everybody singing. Everybody singing. Singing like you mean. Everybody singing. Everybody watching us around the country that want to support us as we do this fight. Or you may have a problem, you may have a situation, you may need your Ebenezer. Call right now, 877-626-4651. 877-626-4651. Someone's at the phone now to look at your civil rights issue, your problem, your situation. Or if you want to join National Action Network, go right now to the phone, 877-626-4651, or go online to nationalactionnetwork.net. You don't need to bear that burden. Call us, and we'll try to help you help yourself. Everybody's singing. Everybody's singing. Everybody's singing. Singing like you mean it. Singing like you mean it. Singing like you mean it. One more time, y'all. One more time, y'all. One more time, y'all. We want justice. Got to have justice. Everybody singing. Yeah. All right, I'm going to open the doors of the movement. Open the doors of the movement. There may be someone today hears us on the radio, watch the television, but never joined National Action Network. We have 23 committees right in this local chapter. Everything from our arts and culture to our youth development with Huddle to dealing with economics and health care and legislative concerns. You need to be involved. Not just watch us, but be us and be a part of us. If you're here and never joined, just come down to me and we'll sign you up into the National Action Network. Come on, don't look around, just come on. Everybody's singing. Singing like you mean it. Singing like you mean it. Everybody now. Happy Father's Day. Everybody singing. Hey. All right, I'm going to raise our offering. I'm moving quickly. Moving quickly.